In light of the recent attack on former President Donald Trump, we are reminded of the perilous nature of holding one of the most powerful positions in the world. Throughout American history, several U.S. presidents have faced threats, and some have tragically fallen victim to violent attacks. Join us as we delve into the history of these targeted assaults, exploring the motivations, outcomes, and lasting impact on the nation. From Andrew Jackson to Ronald Reagan, and now Trump, the presidency has always been a lightning rod for both adoration and animosity. Let's uncover the stories behind these pivotal moments. 1. Andrew Jackson, 1835. The first known attempt to assassinate a sitting U.S. president occurred on January 30th, 1835. Richard Lawrence, an unemployed house painter, approached President Andrew Jackson as he was leaving a funeral at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Lawrence, who was suffering from delusions and believed he was owed a large sum of money by the government, attempted to shoot Jackson with 2 flintlock pistols. Incredibly, both pistols misfired, leaving Jackson unharmed. Despite being 67 years old and in poor health, Jackson was known for his fiery temper and physical toughness. He lunged at Lawrence, striking him multiple times with his cane. Jackson's attack, along with the quick response of bystanders, subdued Lawrence until he could be arrested. Lawrence was later found to be insane and was committed to a mental institution where he spent the rest of his life. This incident highlighted the vulnerabilities in presidential security at the time, as Jackson was relatively unprotected compared to modern standards. It also underscored the intense personal animosities and political tensions that existed in the early years of the Republic. 2. Abraham Lincoln, 1865. On the evening of April 14th, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was attending a performance of the play Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and fervent Confederate sympathizer, entered the presidential box during the play's third act. Armed with a Derringer pistol, Booth shot Lincoln in the back of the head from close range. The bullet entered behind Lincoln's left ear and lodged near his right eye, causing a fatal wound. After shooting the president, Booth leaped onto the stage, breaking his leg in the process, and shouted,
"Sic semper tyrannis!"
Thus always to tyrants, a phrase attributed to Brutus at the assassination of Julius Caesar. Booth then fled the theater and was later killed by Union soldiers after a 12-day manhunt. Lincoln was carried across the street to the Peterson House, where he was attended by several doctors. Despite their efforts, Lincoln never regained consciousness and died at 7:22 a.m. the next morning, April 15th, 1865. His death occurred just days after General Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, which effectively ended the Civil War. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln had profound and far-reaching consequences. It plunged the nation into deep mourning and left the country without its leader during a critical period of reconstruction and healing. Lincoln's assassination also marked the first time a sitting U.S. president had been killed, highlighting the intense divisions and unresolved tensions that remained in the aftermath of the Civil War. The event is often seen as a tragic turning point in American history, cutting short Lincoln's vision for a lenient reconstruction and greater national unity. 3. James A. Garfield, 1881. On July 2nd, 1881, President James A. Garfield was shot by Charles J. Guiteau, a disgruntled office seeker, at the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station in Washington, D.C. Guiteau, who had been denied a government appointment, shot Garfield twice, once in the arm and once in the back. The second bullet lodged near Garfield's spine. Despite being severely wounded, Garfield survived the initial attack. However, the medical treatment he received was inadequate and often harmful. Doctors repeatedly probed his wounds with unsterilized instruments and fingers, trying to locate the bullet, which led to severe infections. This was a common problem in the era before the widespread acceptance of germ theory and antiseptic practices. Garfield endured 79 days of agony, during which he was bedridden and suffered from intense pain and complications from infections. His condition fluctuated, and for a time, there was hope he might recover. However, he eventually succumbed to a massive infection and blood poisoning on September 19th, 1881. Garfield's assassination highlighted the political instability and violence of the era, as well as the limitations of contemporary medical knowledge and practices. His death also prompted changes in the presidential line of succession and increased the push for civil service reform, leading to the eventual passage passage of the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act. 4. William McKinley, 1901. On September 6, 1901, President William McKinley was shot by Leon Czolgosz, an anarchist, during a public event at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. Czolgosz approached McKinley while he was greeting the public in the Temple of Music building. Concealing a revolver under a handkerchief, Czolgosz shot McKinley twice in the abdomen. McKinley was immediately attended to by medical personnel at the scene and was later transported to a nearby hospital. Surgeons operated on him, but they were unable to locate one of the bullets. Initially, McKinley appeared to be recovering, but he developed gangrene in the wound, leading to his rapid decline. He died on September 14, 1901, 8 days after the shooting. Following McKinley's death, Vice President Theodore Roosevelt was sworn in as the 26th President of the United States. Leon Czolgosz, who expressed no remorse for his actions, was quickly tried and convicted. He was executed in the electric chair on October 29, 1901. McKinley's assassination prompted widespread shock and led to increased security measures for public officials. The event also marked a significant moment in American history, bringing Theodore Roosevelt, a dynamic and influential leader, into the presidency. The assassination underscored the threat posed by extremist political ideologies and the vulnerabilities of public figures. 5. Harry S. Truman, 1950. On November 1, 1950, an assassination attempt on President Harry S. Truman was made by Puerto Rican nationalists Griselio Torresela and Oscar Collazo. At the time, Truman was staying at Blair House, across the street from the White House, due to renovations at the executive mansion. The attackers aimed to draw attention to the cause of Puerto Rican independence. Torresela, armed with a Luger pistol, approached Blair House from the west, while Collazo, carrying a Walther P-38, approached from the east. A gunfight ensued between the assailants and the Secret Service agents and police officers guarding Blair House. In the shootout, Torresela mortally wounded White House policeman Leslie Koffelt, who, despite being gravely injured, managed to return fire and kill Torresela. Collazo was injured and captured alive. He was initially sentenced to death, but President Truman later commuted his sentence to life imprisonment. Collazo was eventually released from prison in 1979 after serving nearly 30 years. The attack underscored the ongoing tensions regarding Puerto Rico's political status and highlighted vulnerabilities in the security protocols protecting U.S. presidents. It also led to a review and strengthening of presidential security measures. 6. John F. Kennedy, 1963. On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated while riding in a motorcade through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. Kennedy was in an open-top limousine with his wife, Jacqueline, Texas Governor John Connally, and Connally's wife, Nellie. As the motorcade passed the Texas School Book Depository, shots were fired, striking Kennedy in the head and neck. Governor Connally was also seriously wounded. Kennedy was rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 1 p.m. CST. He was 46 years old. Lee Harvey Oswald, an employee at the Texas School Book Depository, was arrested shortly after the shooting. He was charged with the assassination of President Kennedy and the killing of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit, whom he had encountered while fleeing. Oswald denied responsibility, claiming he was a patsy. Before he could stand trial, Oswald was killed 2 days later by Jack Ruby, a nightclub owner, during a live television broadcast. Kennedy's assassination deeply shocked the world, leading to a period of national mourning and intense public scrutiny. It prompted numerous official and unofficial investigations, most notably the Warren Commission, which concluded that Oswald acted alone in assassinating the president. Despite this, the circumstances surrounding Kennedy's death have fueled widespread conspiracy theories, with many questioning the conclusions of the official reports and suggesting the involvement of other parties or a broader conspiracy. The assassination had significant political and cultural impacts, marking a pivotal moment in American history and the beginning of a turbulent era. It also led to changes in Secret Service procedures and the enhancement of security measures for future U.S. presidents. 7. Ronald Reagan, 1981. On March 30th, 1981, President Ronald Reagan was shot by John Hinckley Jr. outside the Washington Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C. Reagan was leaving the hotel after giving a speech when Hinckley fired 6 shots from a .22 caliber revolver. The bullets hit Reagan, Press Secretary James Brady, Secret Service agent Timothy McCarthy, and police officer Thomas Delahanty. Reagan was struck by a bullet that ricocheted off the limousine and hit him in the chest, puncturing a lung and narrowly missing his heart. Despite the seriousness of the injury, Reagan then walked into the hospital under his own power and made a full recovery after emergency surgery. The incident put a spotlight on the vulnerabilities of presidential security and led to increased protection measures for U.S. leaders. James Brady was left permanently disabled by the attack, which later prompted the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, commonly known as the Brady Bill, mandating federal background checks for firearm purchases in the United States. John Hinckley Jr. was apprehended at the scene and later charged with attempted assassination. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity and committed to a psychiatric hospital. In 2016, Hinckley was released under strict conditions, including monitoring and restrictions on his movements and activities, after spending more than 3 decades in institutional care. The attack on Reagan, which could have drastically changed the course of U.S. history, highlighted the dangers faced by public officials and influenced public debates on gun control and mental health. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on our next adventure into the intriguing corners of history.